Hello, everyone. Welcome to Soul Empowerment. This is episode number 54. And today our topic is the right path, with a big question mark. What is the right path? Is there a right path for everybody? What's the deal with that anyway? My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach, and I am also a best-selling author. I am excited because this is a really interesting topic, something that I'm sure we all have to deal with from time to time. And I'm delighted to have two of my three co-hosts here with me right now, Gail and Sarah, and I think Scott will be joining us shortly as soon as he resolves an issue that's taking place for him. So I'm going to just go around. Gail, would you please introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about yourself, where you are, what you do, and why you're here.
I would love to. Thank you, David. Yeah, I'm Gail Nowak. I'm based in Massachusetts, and I help spirit-led wellness coaches and holistic practitioners create authentic, healthy relationships in their business without hiding or silencing themselves so that they can communicate boldly, lead lovingly, and make the world a better place. And I do that through transformational coaching programs that are energy first and healing centered, and retreats, workshops as well. And really what I like to focus on when I'm working with my clients is communication skills from the strategic side, business-wise, but also from the personal side, up-leveling those communication skills, as well as emotional wellness. Business has a way of, well, a lot of things, life, relationships, family has a way of challenging our emotional center. So I really enjoy working with clients and helping them feel centered and grounded and emotionally balanced. So that's a little bit about me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Gail. And Sarah, please tell us where you are, what you do, and so on.
Hi, I'm Sarah, or Sarah Jane. I don't mind which of those you call me. Some even call me Jane, which I have been in the past. I'm in the UK. I'm on the south coast in a little place. It's not a little place actually, called Bournemouth. And I work with sound energy. I work with energy. I work with channeling. I work with Reiki. I work with sound in the form of toning, the use of the voice. I have found on my own journey, sort of the journey I've gone through for my own healing supports me with others. For me, it's about helping people to heal the inner child, to connect with their younger self. Now, that younger self could actually be you. I'm going to say it this morning because being in the UK, it's actually our evening here. So I know that's the States, it's actually very much your morning. But helping people to reconnect with the inner child, especially the hurt, the traumatized aspect of yourself. Don't ask people to revisit what happened, but I do encourage people to connect with that aspect of themselves just after. And there's a lovely quote by a lady called Alice Little. I never get it perfectly right. As a traumatized child, we were desperately waiting for the person to come and save us. What we didn't understand was it would be ourselves as an adult. And knowing what I support people to do, it just spoke volumes to me the very first time I read that, because we are the only person that can help heal ourselves. Doesn't mean that there aren't lots of people who can help you to do that, but we are the only ones. And that's what I support people to do, heal themselves.
Right. Beautiful. And that really is a powerful truth, isn't it? I mean, I've been thinking about that a lot today, and the last couple of days, but I guess in recent times, this notion of healing, self-healing, it does kind of, each of us has the capacity to heal, which in my opinion just means returning back to wholeness. That's what the word heal means to me. And so if there's anything that's not quite working, that's not quite up to snuff, that's maybe damaged or even destroyed, often can be repaired, replaced, or improved just through the power of our own internal healing mechanisms, which are tied to our connection with spirit, with wholeness, with the universe, with source. Many people have different names for this, and you may think I'm just wandering, but this is actually related to our topic of the right path. Because I think what happens is when we get on the wrong path, whatever that might be for us, usually we see things showing up in our lives that maybe we don't like so much, or that maybe aren't healthy for us, or maybe that cause damage in our body or in some aspect of our wellness. So often, if you're having an issue, some kind of, it might be a medical issue, it might be a mental health issue, it might be an emotional issue. If you're having that going on, there might be an indicator that, hey, maybe you're not quite on the right path. Maybe you haven't been paying attention to your source. I'm glad you brought all that up, Sarah. And I know I kind of alluded to my own challenge with my eye and the issues that have been going on in there. And one thing that has been coming clearer to me as a result of the diminishing clearness in my eye is that maybe I haven't been looking at things properly. Maybe it's time for me to find a new way of, I don't know, perceiving things, understanding them, or just accepting them as they are. I don't know. There's a message here for me that I haven't yet fully figured out, and often that's how life treats us, especially when we have a connection with our soul and we have declared an intention to grow in a certain way, to bring these gifts into the world and so forth. I really noticed ever since I've started that my path is constantly being adjusted and juggled, and I get weird things happening in my life reminding me, hey, you said you were going to do this. How come you're not doing it? Kind of thing. How about you ladies? Do you have the same thing happening in your lives?
Oh, yeah. Sarah, do you mind if I hop in?
Carry on.
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, I love, David, that you linked the inquiry of, geez, I'm noticing this experience with my eye. Maybe I'm not seeing something clearly, because I totally believe that our body talks to us, has messages for us. Sometimes it takes a little while to decode those messages. And when we start to tune in and relate to our body as this GPS system, it can help us with our alignment. And so, I wasn't able to be part of the planning for this session, so I wasn't sure where we were going today, and that's okay, right? That's part of the experience of life unfolding. And for me, when I think about the right path, it's more about alignment. And like you, David, in my experience, life has a way of letting us know when we're open to receiving that, when we're out of alignment, when we're in alignment. When we're in alignment, things flow, things unfold. There is very little resistance. Things show up. I've literally had recently, it boggles my mind, and it's not necessarily like big things, but recently I've been noticing just the thought in my head, haven't even spoken it, and it shows up in my reality. That's what this right path, I'm going to struggle with with that way of describing it. But that, to me, that's what alignment is when you're aligned with your energy and with source, there's an ease there. And then when you're out of alignment, then we experience resistance, maybe some challenge, maybe you're not out of alignment, but you're being shown how powerful and strong you really are by being presented with a challenge. And you know, being on a path of awakening or spirituality or healing and being in alignment doesn't always mean it's going to be easy. And when it's not easy, that doesn't always mean you're off the path. It means it's time to stop, take a pause, and evaluate. Where am I at? Right? Like if you're really going to be literal about it, right? You're walking in the woods or going up a mountain, you stop and you evaluate where you are and whether or not you're still on track, right? And so in the terms of our soul development and our experience of life, it's very similar.
Sarah.
No, I totally get everything that both of you have said, and sort of right path alignment, sort of, are you on the path of your journey? You know, sort of what is your journey here? And I mean, we've talked so many times about the books, Conversations with God, and it's about we're here to experience. And sometimes our experiences are just that. It's just an experience, you know. Sort of, there are many strange things that I've done, sort of like a wing walk and sort of abseiling and sort of and zip wires, and they are an experience. But that's about the experiencing of life, and they can be a part of the path, that journey that we are on, and our journey can have twists and turns in it. You talk about to sort of alluded to sort of like wake up calls, and I was just thinking about sort of that journey, of that part of my journey, and it was about when I did what was necessary. And sometimes it's not a matter of what the universe takes from us, it's the universe is waiting for us to make an action, to take an action, and it is really important for us to take it. And for me, I believe it was actually to leave my second marriage. It was almost as soon as I did, well, I say almost as soon, it was within a couple of months. Suddenly we got told at work that the company had been taken over. And I was living in Northampton at the time. And the new company was right here in Bournemouth. That's how I ended up down here. I made that move to leave my marriage. Company got taken over. I came down here on a 6-month secondment. I started looking for a little house. I put an offer in on one, and an envelope, and this is between Christmas and New Year, an envelope fell through the door. And it was from another estate agent, and it was just like, nope, not opening it. I said, I will open this, and only if the house is vacant possession, in other words, empty, will I even consider it. I opened the envelope. There was only one piece of paper in there. The house was vacant possession. And that was the house that I was meant to have, because that's the house I bought. Job fell into place. So much fell into place for me. I've heard people say, oh, if your path is easy, you're on the wrong path. No, there are times when things just seem to flow, because they've got to get you to where you're meant to be. And if you take those steps, it wasn't a 2-second journey. You know, this was over a period of just over a year, once I sort of, over a year. Yeah, sort of once I left my husband to buying my sort of own house down in Bournemouth, leaving that job, having taken redundancy, and within 6 days, walking into a brand new job. The universe accepted the fact I was proactive in my life. And we have to be proactive on our journey. There are times when it is really important that we take a step back, that we have a rest. We have to recharge. We have to keep our bodies in the best shape we can. And we're not all good at that. I know I'm not when it comes to chocolate. I accept that about me. It's one of my challenges. But
Well, maybe it's one of your little pleasures.
not the amount I eat, David.
Well, I love the way this conversation's going. I think, first of all, we're describing the phrase "the right path" in exactly the right way, as far as I'm concerned, because each of us has a path. Each of us, and any two of us might have paths that look very similar in a lot of different ways, but they don't have to be the same. In fact, when two people come together in a relationship, they may stay in that relationship for a matter of an instant to a lifetime. It can range. And when I refer to a lifetime, I'm talking about a lifetime on this planet. In reality, we are all in relationship with each other all the time, forever. It's infinite, because that's just the way the spiritual world works. However, in the physical world, we have these experiences of separateness, of the idea that somehow I'm separate from one another rather than being connected, so that we can really appreciate the connection that we do have. This is all an amazing thing. Another thing that you said, Sarah, I'm not sure why anybody would say if your path is too easy, you're on the wrong path. I think here's a person who has spent a lot of time struggling in his or her life and thinks that that's the way life is supposed to be. I don't think life is supposed to be any particular way. I think that maybe some people, it is meant to be a struggle. For other people, it's meant to be easy and breezy. We all have our own intention, our spiritual intention, to have a specific kind of experience before we even get here. And so we don't necessarily define all the details of that experience or the exact paths that we're going to follow or any of that stuff. But we say, I'll speak for myself now. My purpose, I am very clear now, is to have a very clear understanding of who I really am, so that I can help other people to recognize the importance of that knowing for them. That's my purpose. Well, my journey took me to a place where I basically disowned myself. I basically pretended I didn't know who I was so that I could live according to what other people expected of me. That's how my journey took me. And it got me to a place where eventually I got very resentful, angry, and ashamed, and all the rest of it. And I knew that I had to shift. And it was that shift, that wake-up call, that brought me back to my original intention. Now, you might ask, well, why bother going through all that crap in the first place? Why? So that I could really appreciate the importance of knowing the truth of who I really am. That's why. And now everything I do is focused, because I'm so clear about who I am, I'm so clear about my purpose here, that everything I do now is aligned with that purpose. Now, this problem that I described with my eye, is this something that has come about because today, in this recent past, I'm not necessarily on my right path? I don't know, maybe. But it also could be a side effect of things that happened earlier in my life that are just now starting to catch up to me. Just because you have an unpleasant situation in your life, it doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Sometimes the universe will put a little block in place and say, hey, get around this, buddy. And it's doing that not because it's trying to be a smart ass or anything like that, but because it's trying to tell you, get you to declare, this is really who I am, and I am going to find a way around that block, whatever it is. So the right path may be a straight and narrow shot for part of your life, or maybe the whole life. I don't know. And it may be twisty and curvy. It might go up hills and down hills. Who knows where it's going to go? But your right path is your right path. My right path is my right path. And there might be some commonality between our two paths for a while, maybe even for a long time. But ultimately, each of us has to follow our own path while at the same time recognizing that we live in a world in which other people are trying to navigate their own complex paths in life. So we may have to abide by some rules that we don't like so much in order to be able to make sure that we're not violating someone else's space or encroaching on their rights or anything like that. You know, certainly I think we have to start taking stock. We have to take responsibility for our thoughts, our words, our actions, our emotions, every choice we make, every consequence we create from those choices. All of those things we have to be willing to take responsibility for. So a part of the right path, I think, is owning the truth of who we are and living according to that truth, and at the same time taking responsibility for all our choices.
David, you just summed up the episode.
Well, and it's a topic that is very deep and could have.
It is.
So I wasn't trying to summarize. I wasn't trying to suggest that we're done.
I know. Oh gosh, there's so much in what you're sharing there. A lot of things floated into my awareness as you were sharing, and when, in my experience anyway, I know that in my path, I really struggled in my younger years thinking that things were happening to me. And that's not to say that things that I didn't have unwanted experiences. And when we're able to shift out of that, why is this happening to me? Or this thing is happening to me, or these things always happen to me. And it really can be a mind bender to go through that process of shifting into, how is this happening for me, especially when it's an unwanted experience. That will help you with that alignment. You will receive information about, kind of like how you asked it, you just immediately went there like, maybe there's something I'm not seeing. Right. And maybe it's that, or maybe there's some other message there for you as you continue to tune into that. When we are able to approach our life and our own path from that place of, how is this happening for me? That's when magic unfolds. Right. That's when magic really unfolds. That's when we are able to even get to a point where we might have, we always have infinite possibilities. And we might actually have, in the physical, we might actually have specific possibilities, and we're standing at a crossroads and we're ruminating on over what's the best path, best path. And I've really come to believe that when you pick a path, just pick a path. If it's not clear, if it's not a full-on yes, pick a path and trust that if you made the wrong choice, you're going, you might take a divine detour, but nothing is ever wasted. Nothing is ever wasted, and you will still receive wisdom, guidance, life experiences, and you'll find your way to where you're meant to go. So a lot of what you were saying, David, just it really kind of bubbled up this whole idea of trust, trusting in yourself. And sometimes it's hard to trust in yourself, depending on, how your experiences have been, or if you've been invalidated in your experience. And that's part of the work. That's part of the work of personal development and growth and healing. And when you're willing to do that work, then you start it's an adventure. Life is an adventure. It reminds me of those choose your own adventure books, right? It always leads somewhere. And sometimes it leads to the place that you intended. And sometimes it leads to an even more fantastical place.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, Scott.
Well, thank you for that, Gail. Welcome, Scott. How are you doing?
Thank you. Apologize for being so tardy.
Well, I understand you were on the wrong path today.
I was definitely on the wrong path. In fact, I would intercepted the path of another car.
Everyone okay?
Everybody's good. It was a smudge. Not even a bumper. It was just a smudge.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. But we've been talking about all kinds of different things today, and I think the idea that, well, there is no wrong path, obviously. For you, something happened for a reason. It was meant to slow you down for some reason. Perhaps it was just an opportunity to, think about what's going on in your life. I don't know. I don't know your life, but each of us, we get these things that happen all the time. They don't appear to be invited. They don't appear to be anything that we intentionally created. So sometimes it can confuse us about whether we're on the right path or not. Did any of that happen for you today, Scott?
Yeah, it was very interesting. I'd been watching a series on Apple TV called Dark Matter, and it's the black box theory that the cat's in the box, and you don't know if the cat is alive.
Schrodinger cat. Yeah.
Yep. And so they manufacture it, and in order to kind of take you out of it, you have a special drug that allows you to go to different, and it's infinite number of possibilities. That each decision you make opens another door. So a divergent path, and all those major decisions and minor decisions that you make through the course of your life make up who you are. Now, at the very core, we are the same person at the very core. But through programming, through growing up, through different choices that we make, where we live, how we live, who we live with, who we connect with, who we don't, and those major life decisions really affect how your life goes forward from there, because that becomes your new reality. What that decision you make becomes your reality. And it really got me to thinking about, how do you look at your life, and what about all the different possibilities that you do have? And I'm thinking about all of the influx of, on my feed on Facebook, on my feed on LinkedIn, on my feeds, on everything that we do. It's all the same message keeps coming up. You can manifest anything. You can change anything. You can do this. And, I used to look at it and say, well, no, I've got this, I've got, the house, I live here. These are the parameters that I'm living within. So I don't really have any choices. But you really do have the choices. You have those choices all the way down the line for every day. And it's finding out and coming back to who you truly are in here, and living from that space in your heart to be able to live authentically. David, you always talk about living authentically. You use that all the time. And it's how you deal with people, who you deal with, who you choose to deal with, how you choose to run your life. You've told your story many times, but David, about you went all the way to California because you thought that was the best thing for you at the time. And that was a major life decision. And it affected absolutely everything that you've done since. And we all have that opportunity to make those decisions, to make those life decisions. We all have, I think all four of us have those stories where there was that turning point in life, right? Do I go left or do I go right? Going left means one thing, going right means entirely something else for my life. And that is just so scary, exciting, wonderful, and it raises the curiosity. It just, and for me, I want to see what happens next. I am so excited about what happens next. Who am I going to meet? What am I going to do? And so that journey, that path, I don't know if there is a right. There's only the choices we make.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The thing that I noticed about this as you were speaking, it always, just the way you described it, it sounds like there's only ever a choice to go left or right. In reality, at any given point in choice, I believe you have an infinite variety of choices available. You may not necessarily know all of them. You may not recognize all of them, but there are not just two choices. It's not like you come into a fork in the road and you got to go left or right and then see what happens next. There are infinite variety of choices. And I think that the point that we're all trying to make here today is that you have to check in with yourself. I think you have to know something about what each choice entails, what each option entails, and then choose from your alignment about which one of those feels most in alignment with who you are in that moment. And as Gail said earlier, if you choose a path, maybe you weren't all that clear when you made the choice. If you choose a path and then discover, oh, this isn't quite the right thing. Well, you cannot unchoose, but what you can do is come to a new choice point and choose something different. That's what you can do. Because all of the consequences of your initial choice are still there. Those will not go away. So if you had some unintended consequence that might have caused damage or have a negative effect on somebody else, now you have more information available. You make a new choice and you say, now how do I go back and repair that while choosing what's right for me? That's kind of now your new choice. Do you see how the two pieces come together? So this is what I think we do all the time. And of course, if you're still living in your, let's say, ego mind and not necessarily fully aware of your true nature, you might say, to hell with the consequences. I'm just going to continue forward, But if you are truly a spiritual being and you are understanding the connection and relationship you have with all beings everywhere, then you will know that anything you think, say, or do yourself, you're doing to everybody. It's impacting everybody. And anything that you think, say, do, or feel in regards to another person, you're bringing to yourself. This is a really deep awareness that once you understand that and you embrace it, then you can start making your choices much more intentionally. And you can say, I know that this is likely to create this consequence. Is that a consequence I'm prepared to live with? Is that a consequence I'm going to be proud of? So this is how, as we grow and expand and become more enlightened over time, whatever that really means, presumably our choices become more intentional, more focused, more aligned with love and kindness and generosity and forgiveness and all those beautiful qualities that we all love so much. Sarah, you haven't said anything for a while. I'd like to make sure you get a chance to speak up here.
I was just listening to all of this, and it speaks to so much, but it's sort of a couple of things. Is obviously what I explained sort of before Scott was sort of coming on about sort of how the path became so easy when I made that decision to leave my marriage. And there would be some people who have that experience, and it would be difficult for them because it would cause them problems and struggles. I don't know how my thinking was the way it was, because I hadn't even started. Maybe that was the start of this path. I don't know. But it was I felt life was made so easy for me. I didn't look at the difficulties it was going to cause. But I think when we make a decision, one, we can only make a decision with the information we have at the time. Once we've made that decision, then we are going to learn more. And that learning could be, oops, right, I've learned from this. Now, where am I going from here? So that what you were sort of talking to, sort of David, but it also a comment that sort of you made, Gail, it was about sort of nothing is wasted. Up to that point where and even beyond, to that point where I took the decision, that was the start of my wake-up journey, my healing journey, where I made that decision following the broken jaw. Everything I'd experienced then, all the work I'd done within retail, within insurance, within public houses, all the work and jobs I had done on my parents' hotel and other hotels, all the jobs I'd done, they gave me knowledge. They are not wasted. And when it came to then doing fairs and events with the Reiki and the Indian head massage, etc., because I'd worked in retail, I had, and that was when I had no confidence at all. I know I was good at what I did, but I still didn't have any confidence in me. It gave me that confidence to be there, to have that stand, to talk to people. There is nothing, as you said, Gail, wasted in our lives. Don't think, oh, I wish I'd woken up 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier, whatever. You wouldn't have had the experiences you've had that would give you the knowledge to support you with why you're here. You are given gifts even when you aren't aware you're being given gifts. Before your wake up, or whatever you want to call it, before you start thinking, oh, this isn't what I wish to be doing. I had a friend saying to me constantly, because I knew I hated being insurance. I absolutely hated being in insurance. Well, what do you want to do? What do you like to do? Don't ask me what I want, because I was brought up with I wants, don't get. So I don't want anything. So think about your phraseology for a start. What would you like? What would you choose? Think about your phraseology with your life. It's really important because it can really help you to step forward. And don't ever berate yourself for a choice made. You cannot make a wrong choice, because you can only make a choice with the information you have. It's only wrong if you keep repeating it.
And expecting different results.
Exactly. And they say this, if you keep on doing the same old thing, you are not going to get different results. You're going to keep getting the same old thing. So I think that, listening to all of this, I think we're all saying the same thing from our own different experiences, understandings, and perceptions.
Yeah, absolutely. Dale.
Yeah.
Writing furiously.
I know. Sarah, I love that you brought up that phraseology piece. And yeah, I think like asking that question. So this is more my phraseology on the heels of yours of who would you get to be if you couldn't make a wrong choice? Or who would you get to be if you always made the right choice for you? Right. And that just opens up so many more opportunities and possibilities. So I love that. And David, also, I really appreciated how not only were you talking about choice in a neutral sort of way, but also bringing attention to the fact that choices are neutral in your discussion of that, and that it's information and knowledge, like you said, Sarah. And I think that sometimes we get a little tripped up because we don't want to make a mistake, or we want maybe we do have a specific want or a specific hope or vision or goal, and we want to be guaranteed the payoff before we actually take any action. And it's, hey, been there, done that, guilty. And if we can hold those choices a little lighter and sort of surrender a little bit more into the process, you start to see everything that we're talking about. I had an experience recently where things were very stagnant in my life, very stagnant in my business. And it was painful. It was really painful for me. And I basically had to go in that surrender mode. I was praying, I was asking for advice, and I also was recognizing that I had some parameters, some non-negotiables. And at first I was really focused on those non-negotiables, and so nothing was moving. And it really brought me to my knees, and I was like, okay, I surrender. Like, just show me where you want me to be and go. And sure enough, this opportunity came up to work with the local college here with students who have disabilities. Now, I have no experience with this population. I have no training or education, or I didn't at the time. I've since gotten some with, working with intellectual disabilities. And the whole time I was like, I don't get it, but I felt that it was aligned to say yes to this opportunity. I saw it advertised, and I felt this very strong nudge of like, go advertise, go and respond to this. And I didn't right away, because I was like, I know that when I respond to this, I'm going to get this contract. So I just knew, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like it. So this will happen, right? Like, I don't want to make a mistake. What if I don't like it? What if I feel trapped there? Like, what if I'm like completely fail? All of those things brought up all of that, right? And sure enough, I sent the resume in and the letter, and 20 minutes later, the email comes back. Are you available for an interview next week? Yep. Okay. So I'm like, here we go.
That's awesome.
20 minutes after the interview, we'd like to hire you. Like, this is how I know. I don't get, my logical mind does not understand why this is important for my path. And I'm trusting it's important for my path because, as you said, Sarah, it all started to line up, and it was easy, and I don't want to say swift, but the decisions fell easily into place. And now, having been working with that client and that population, I see it. So a lot of times we're presented with opportunities and choices that we can't future cast. We might have a sense that it's important, and we can't fully know. And sometimes I think we're not supposed to fully know what the actual payoff is. And so it is a lot about having faith and trusting those nudges. Like, this is where we want you to go right now. So, yeah.
I think this is a fascinating conversation. First of all, I don't believe that there are any mistakes at all. I think that there are only choices that lead to consequences that we hadn't intended or desired. And it's the ego mind that labels this a mistake. From the spiritual perspective, there are no mistakes, even if the consequences aren't what you desired, because ultimately those consequences have a positive benefit to somebody. We knock ourselves down so much whenever we do some harm to somebody. Think of it this way, for example. And today, in our world today, it seems like everybody has to be so careful what they say to anybody else nowadays. It's just ridiculous. But the truth of the matter is, if I say something to you that activates a trigger within you, you might decide that you hate me as a result. Well, that's your choice, of course. You may even decide that you want to take revenge against me or something. That too is your choice. But what has happened here is that you have been awakened to something inside yourself that you may have chosen not to pay any attention to up until now. And you hate me for waking you up. And that's ultimately how everything is in our world. When somebody pushes my buttons, yeah, I can go into ego mind reactive mode and start, firing off on all four cylinders and, shooting bullets in their direction. But if I can stay out of my ego mind and stay connected to my heart and my soul, I can say, there's a little wound in there that needs some healing. And I can make it about me. I can say, yeah, I see that. Thank you for that gift. You see what I'm saying? The whole idea of mistakes is a mistake. Really. It's a misunderstanding of what reality really is. That's just what I think. God.
So you bring that up, and I'm thinking about all of the things that I did and the choices I made and how I was made at times to be ashamed of those choices, or they were not, such as with my parents, they were not what they would do. So therefore it was wrong. And so there was blame and shame associated with it. So going into that journey, part of the journey, there was that added onto it. It was on the shoulders. And so that is how my perspective of how I was going along was interpreted by me, by my ego mind. Even though there was times when I would reach down in and look and say, this is right though. There's something right about this. But all the trappings, all the people around in my life kept telling me no. And those decisions that I made throughout, I don't have that same sense of have to. I don't ought to, the shoulds, right? All those weight we put on our shoulders or gets put there by other people. I don't have that any longer because there is a freedom in being from your heart, from living from your heart, from like speaking from your heart. When you talk about your feelings, we always tell everybody we deal with, can't be wrong. They're your feelings. Now, how you decide to act on them, I used to have this discussion with my wife. She went through when we first were married, and of course I didn't do anything wrong, but of course, first month we were married, and she didn't talk to me for 3 days. She, in fact, ignored me for 3 days. We're living in an apartment, and she ignored me. And afterwards, I said, "Please, whatever you do, just don't ever, ever, ever do that to me again, please." Whatever I did, because going into it, I knew I was wrong somehow. I didn't understand it at the time, but she let me know that I was very wrong, and she didn't talk to me. And I said, "Well," she said, "when I'm angry, that's how you're supposed to act." I looked at her. I said, "Well, if somebody else gets angry, they throw dishes, or they slam doors, or they go for rides, or they go for a walk, or they scream and yell." I said, "I would prefer any of those alternatives other than ignoring me for 3 days." So, yes, was her emotion wrong? No. How she reacted with it and to it, we worked that out. We were only married for 39 years, so we kind of figured it out. But it's that staying close to here, but also being open. And David, you really made that mention of how we see it, how we see things. Something we view as bad happens. What is it? How do we see that? The alternatives. And I was doing left and right, but in each each decision we make, there are those multiple decisions, those multiple avenues we can go. Life, I wish life were as clear as left, right?
That would be nice.
At least you'd have a 50-50 shot at it.
Well, actually, you have a 100% shot at it.
Exactly.
You know, to reframe what Sarah said, every choice is the choice that you make with the best information you had. So you have a 100% chance of making a choice. All right. And whether it's a right choice or a wrong choice, it's really irrelevant. Did it serve you in some way? Did it lead you to where you are today? You know, think about it from the perspective of, if I hadn't made that choice, where would I be right now? I mean, you'd probably still be where you are, because that's just a silly if-then kind of question, what if kind of question. But one thing I wanted to add to what you were saying is, you talked about saying things, doing things, and having other people tell you that you're wrong, tell you that that was not an appropriate way of being, or something like that. You know, I always think about it this way. What would have happened if, Copernicus had listened to all the people who told him he was a heretic and a lunatic and absolutely wrong about what he believed? Where would we be today? The fact of the matter is, when you have a conviction in your heart and you know something is right, then it doesn't matter what one person, 5 people, 10 people, 100 people, 1 million people, or 7 billion people have to say about it. When you're honest and true to yourself, that's all that matters. Now, it could be that something rather unpleasant might happen to your body if you hold on to that belief. But ultimately, it's got to be your conviction that decides the right choice for you, right? Not what other people say. Now, I say that, and it's a great intellectual exercise. But I tell you, if I was standing in a circle of people, angry-looking people, who were just about ready to kill me because they disagreed with something that I said, I might be inclined to go along with them. I will admit that my ego mind might be so strong in that moment that I would go along with them, and I would again give up my sovereignty as a spiritual being of light and love. You know, I haven't reached that point of elevation or enlightenment where I could just simply say, go ahead, take my body. I don't care. I haven't reached that point yet. That'll happen next week.
I think when people sort of, you're talking about sort of you did something wrong and your wife didn't speak to you for 3 days. But did you do something wrong? Did you say something wrong? Especially with the spoken word. It's, if you hear something, I know I've said this before, and I will keep saying it. If you hear something and you think, ouch, ask the person if they meant what you heard. What you said, what you heard. Because what you heard and what they meant could be 2 totally different things. And so many arguments, disagreements, fallouts could be prevented if we talked to each other. They really could. You know, sort of, I can't think of an example, but we do. And especially between UK and America, the different meanings of certain words. And they have a very different meaning for you that they do to us. And so if you've used a particular word that actually means something different to that person, I mean, it means something, you know, you've got 2 different meanings, and it can be taken the wrong way. So talk, ask. because that's all part and parcel of all our paths, is to be able to communicate with each other. And communication is essential. It's what we do here, isn't it? We're communicating. And the joy of it is we are communicating from our experiences, our understanding, our perspectives. I know you'll use that again already this evening, because evening for me. But I think that's the thing to remember, is the biggest mistake we can make is by not asking that question. Did you mean what I heard? And rephrase it to your understanding of what you've just heard. If they turn around and say yes, then you have got your choice of how you deal with that. If they turn around and say, no, that's not what I meant at all, everybody can relax, hopefully. But to me, it's still all about our path, our journey, the experiences we are here to have. And the other thing, just very briefly, you talked about this little shunt that you've had today, and I had one not last year, the year before. And the individual involved was a white van, so we know what they say about white van men, but I actually gently...
No. What do they say about white vans and men?
No, white van men.
Men in white vans.
Basically, over here, it's just very much, it's a white van, and they rule the road. They think they own the road, sort of, etc.
How did you know I was driving a white van?
I didn't, and I'm sure you weren't. But with this particular incident, but it was me that went into the back of him, and I literally it cracked the tail light. It did over £1,000 worth of damage to my car, and it was off the road for 10 weeks. Anyway, that's beside the point. The individual driving that van, we've got this huge problem with racism and things. He wasn't of English birth, English extraction, but I owned up immediately. It was my fault. There were 2 witnesses, for crying outside loud. Why wouldn't I have been honest about it? It was my fault. I hit the back of him, and I was honest about it and made sure we did the exchanges, etc., etc. I could have been completely, bloody minded about it, but I wasn't. So maybe it wasn't so much about me, but it was obviously in aspects, because it kept me off the road for 10 weeks, and certain family things that I didn't end up by doing. But maybe it was about him. Maybe it was about him having that experience that somebody was open, honest, genuine with him. So sometimes our experiences aren't necessarily about us. Maybe they are about the other individual for whatever reason, and we never get to know. Our path is meant to cross other people's paths. Whether it's, as I think, as you said earlier, David, whether it's for a short period of time, whether it's for the whole of our lives, they're meant to cross. And we will touch lives. Why do we put this program with the hope that we're going to touch lives? That's what it's all about.
Beautiful. Gail, you want to add something here before I wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've been hearing today, and what I'd like to impart as we bring this conversation to a close, is that your path is a reflection of who you are, who you're becoming, and to remember that you're capable and powerful and always supported on your path.
Yeah. Beautiful. I wanted to share one other little piece about my eye problem. I went out walking yesterday with my dog, and while I was walking, it was a meditative walk on a barefoot on the grass. That's the kind of grounding walk I was doing. And while I was doing that, I was, I guess, meditating, praying, whatever you want to call it. And I was calling upon Spirit upon the universe, upon omnitude, to provide me with a mechanism to activate my body's healing for my eye. I said a lot more words. I'm not going to go into detail about that. But what was really interesting is after that walk was finished and I came home and I had dinner with my son and he was talking and we were just sharing ideas. At around, I don't know, 7 o'clock at night after we'd had our dinner, Kevin comes out and says, "Hey, Dad, I just had this thing show up serendipitously in my feed. It's a product called Sight Care. You might want to check it out." And he sent that to me and I started reading. I said, "Holy shit, this is exactly what I asked for." So I guess my point, and I'm not going to go into more detail about that, but what I want people to understand is when you call upon the universe and your heart is perfectly aligned to the truth of who you are and what you really desire, what you really want, what you hope for, the universe will conspire to bring that about for you very quickly. And you never know how it's going to happen. I certainly didn't expect that to come from my son, but it did. So just open yourself to the possibility that you are already on the right path. And that if you give yourself permission, you can call upon the universe to guide you pretty much anywhere you want to go. That's what I want to say. Anybody else have any closing words before I shut her down? All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Remember, you can catch the recording of this and every other episode of Soul Empowerment on my website at yourlifemasterycoach.com. I wish you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey, and I say goodbye on behalf of my entire panel. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye for now.